the Lynn Teachers Union Public Education Forum. I'm Sheila O'Neill, I'm the president of the Lynn Teachers Union, and I would like to welcome you to tonight's Public Education Forum. Our educators have worked diligently over the past 18 months to meet the needs of our students. Our union worked collaboratively to fight for proper funding for our schools. The legislators heard our voices and have responded positively and passed the Student Opportunities Act. The $1.5 billion to be distributed over the next 7 years is the first step in repairing the 20 years of damage to the educational system. This is exciting news, but it is our duty as voters to understand how the funds are being utilized for our students and educators. Tonight is an opportunity for us to learn more about the candidates running for school committee and mayor. Each candidate has submitted a one-page statement about their vision for the Lynn schools, students, and educators. The school committee candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question and give a closing statement. The mayoral candidates will have 5 minutes for opening and closing statements and 4 minutes to respond to each question. I would like to introduce our school committee candidates. CASTELLANOS, COPPOLA, DUGAN, LOPEZ is on her way. TIFFANY MAGNOLIA, PENA, and Mayoral candidates Darren will be here at the close of the City Council meeting, and Jared Nicholson is here with us in the audience. Our moderator is Phil O'Connor. He's a 6th grade science teacher and the building rep for Breed Middle School. He is a member of the North Shore Labor Council. He is an AFT Mass Convention delegate and an AFT Convention delegate. Phil O'Connor, welcome. The questions are on the table. You can turn them over now.
All right, thank you, Sheila. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, candidates.
Introduce the timekeeper, sorry.
And our timekeeper, Ms. Gina O'Toole.
Oh, hi.
So before we begin, we just want to let everyone know this will be live streamed on our Facebook page, AFT 1037 Lynn Teachers Union. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond per question. Please pay attention to Ms. O'Toole as she holds up the signs. If you go over the time, I will gently coax you into finishing up your answer. Let's start. So as stakeholders in Lynn Public Schools, we are all aware that the physical learning environment has a direct and profound impact on the health and performance of our students. Similarly, this prevents educators from meeting the diverse needs of the populations we serve, from essential academic standards to the social emotional needs. Sadly, many Lynn schools have been identified as in need of extensive repair or replacement. If elected as a school committee member, will you commit to work with Lynn Teachers Union to advocate for essential repairs and replacement of buildings beyond repair? Why or why not? Please answer yes or no before your explanation. Candidate Castellanos.
Can you hear me?
So the mics are on the table. They should pick up everything.
So from my short answer, yes, it's a yes. So for me, it's important. Really, we have to establish a capital improvement plan for our buildings. As you over the last 4 years, I've got to see the right on the ground infrastructure quality, which is poor. We're in a crisis. We need to establish the partnerships through the legislature, through the Student Opportunity Act as well as the ESNA grant. We should be. That's a priority and focus for me, and I'm always committed to not just talking about it, but actually being involved in the planning. As we transition with our new leadership at City Hall, and if I'm elected, and also the new committee coming in, that is a priority. Overcrowding is an issue. Also for our teachers, when you look at Pickering, I've taken time to actually speak with our teachers and folks in the buildings who this impacts. So it's traumatic, especially for a lot of the folks and our students as well, who have to go to these really broken schools, over 100 plus years old. I know me and Member Ford, and just to kind of go back, I'm on those on the ground, so I got to really learn about the infrastructure needs, working with ISD, and also just and not minimizing the fact that we've been dealing with this for a long time now. The state, working with MSBA is another priority and a necessity with this process. They are one of the vital stakeholders here. As you know, we're back in the mix with Pickering. We need to make sure that we have the right people on that planning committee that know what they're doing, and making sure that our community is part of that process, and to establish input across the board, so we don't have to have another repeat to lose schools, because we need those schools, and that is a priority.
Thank you. Candidate Poll.
Okay, my answer is yes, I will work with the Lynn Teachers Union in regards to the replacement of schools as well as updating them. I've been around a long time. My kids have all graduated from Lynn Classical, and I was very active with a teacher here at Breed and some teachers that were in Classical downtown, and we worked hard and long. It took a number of years before we could really get a new Classical built. So I know how hard it is to work for it. I mean, what we did for Thurgood Marshall is another one that I helped and worked on that to get that done. And without the teachers that we had, without city councilors in particular, we had 2 city councilors because it ended up in that war, but Darren Sear and Buzzy Barton worked diligently to get that school built, and it's a beautiful building. But we are long overdue for a Pickering and many of the other schools. They're in dire need of repair, and we have to work on all of them. Thank you.
Candidate Dugan.
So yes, actually, absolutely. You know, I like to compare the schools almost to like your house. If you were to walk into somebody's house and, you know, it's decorated in a way that is maybe depressing, or there's paint peeling off the wall, you're more apt to feel, you know, maybe not so welcome in that house. Our children and our teachers spend a huge chunk of time in schools. Some children, that's more time than they do at home. Some teachers, more time than they do at home. Trust me, I know that for certain. And you know, the appeal of the buildings is critical. I was president of Wyoming Little League for a little while, and one of the things that we would do once a week is cut the grass between Pickering and the church next door. And I often wondered, you know, why is this not getting done? Why are the volunteers at Wyoming Little League doing this? You know, where there are people that could be doing this. And then just my experience in Pickering as well. My younger son went to Pickering, you know, walking in that school, seeing paint peeling off the walls, seeing, you know, ceiling tiles fall. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So, you know, as a committee member, that's definitely something I'll address. It's definitely something that I'll work towards improving. You know, we all know that the new Pickering's on its way, hopefully, knock on wood. But in the meantime, we do need to address these things in our buildings. You know, children feel it when they walk into those buildings. It's depressing, you know, and, you know, the learning clicks off. And we need the learning to click on. We need bright, vibrant spaces for children to learn in, and you know, as a committee member, I'll work to get that for us. So.
Candidate Gately, thank you.
The answer, of course, is yes. I will work with the teachers union and any union to improve the conditions of our schools. I'm going to work diligently to get that new Pickering in, and I'm going to follow the plan that Darren Sear and Buzzy Barton used to get in the Thurgood Marshall. What they did was they went out to the community, individually talked to the people in the surrounding areas where the schools were going to go in, and they asked, what do you need for us to do to make it doable to have a brand new Thurgood Marshall in this location? And that's what I plan on doing for the Pickering, the new Pickering. As far as the conditions in the schools, when it's brought towards me or to me on the school committee, or when people call me and I answer their calls, I literally will vote for anything that's going to give our schools or make our schools healthier. And that's what I have been doing, and I will continue to do for the next 2 years. Thank you.
Candidate Magnolia.
Thank you. So the short answer is yes. And I want to use an analogy. I happen to live in an 1850 house. And the first renovations that my husband and I did when we bought the house was to make the house energy efficient. We put solar panels on, we insulated it, we changed out the boiler. These are the kinds of things that save money in the long term. And sadly, one of the things I've not been able to see as just an outside observer to the school committee is an investment in that version of energy efficiency. There are a lot of grants that the state of Massachusetts puts out. I happen to work at North Shore Community College. We took advantage of those for 2 of our buildings to save ourselves over $100,000 a month in electricity costs. With that kind of savings, you can parlay it into other kinds of repairs. So one of the things that I hope to do on the school committee is to use my experience at the college, but to also think about ideas for saving money in ways that have not yet been tried, and therefore use those savings to put into critical repairs that the schools need. I don't want to touch the Pickering thing because I know that's a separate question, but I think if we can prioritize what I would call the energy hog schools, and we could use some energy efficiency grants with those, we would both be saving the money and be able to parlay that savings into repairs that would make a really big deal down the road. It's not the kind of stuff like peeling paint that's obvious and visible, but I would love to see solar panels on every single school in this city. There is no reason we can't use rebate programs to save ourselves millions of dollars in energy costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Pena.
And my answer to that is absolutely yes. I will fight, and as a school committee member, I will advocate to get more funding. We need to build schools. We're in need of it. In my experience as an employee of the Lynn Water and Sewer Commission, we always go to the schools, different schools, Arrington, Ingalls Elementary, and we try to help with their sewer system. The infrastructure is so old in the sewers, I can imagine what else is old in the schools. And we need more, we need bigger schools, we need to build a new school. We have a lot of students, and it's it's a lot of the teachers. As a youth worker, as a coach, I see we're getting a lot of kids. Like the average, the last few years, the average was like 125 kids, 150. We're getting 200 plus kids, registering to play. We have over 40 kids on the team, which is unheard of, and you have to get a lot of playing time to these kids. So I will definitely, as a school committee member, as a union member, I will fight. We're going to have a new mayor. We can, and there's also a lot of money coming in from COVID relief, and hopefully we can allocate some of those funds to help with our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Richard.
Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. So, absolutely, I would support this in working with the teachers union, but also working with state and local delegation to make sure that we're getting the funding and we're getting the money to come in that we can make necessary repairs. As a student myself who went through the school systems, I remember going to Druids. I remember sitting in this exact auditorium back in 2001. I know it can be very uncomfortable, not just for teachers, but for kids as well. I can remember being here in the summertime and opening windows because the kids are just sweating and they can't focus on school. They can't focus on getting their schoolwork done. And it's very difficult. It's very hard to do. And I remember being in that classical when the walls were cracking. I remember being there my senior year and the library collapsed in on itself. So I had no library my senior year. They closed down the C wing for repairs because the school is sinking. So once again, it's very important that we have schools that are functional, but also to make sure that the schools that we do have, that we do make necessary repairs to them. Something as simple as putting in units for AC, putting in things that will not cost a lot of money to make sure that our teachers, but our kids are being in a safe environment. In Pickering, I hear it all the time that there might be a tile that falls on a kid's head. Who wants to be in a school like that? That's not safe. That's not good for our kids. It's very, very detrimental to the kids and the teachers to be in that kind of environment. So I feel we need to work with state and local delegations. We need to think outside the box to bring in new ideas, to bring in different programs, to repair our schools, but also push forward to make sure that we're getting new schools as well. Because new schools is going to be the ultimate answer in making sure that our kids and our teachers are working and learning in a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Second question. In April 2021, Lynn entered the eligibility period for a new Pickering Middle School. As a school committee member, what is your role in assisting the city and the school department in moving through the MSBA process? How will you ensure the transparency of the process for our community? Where are we currently in this process? Candidate Castellanos.
So as a school committee member, my job, so I am an ambassador for Lynn Public Schools in the city. Some of the roles, I wear a lot of hats as a union member. I am a local 509 SIU member for DCF. I'm also a new member of the North Shore Labor Council. I'm a delegate. So I believe in my connections and just my ability to lobby and work with the state legislature, and also my connections with MSBA already. Over the last 4 years, I've got to learn about who MSBA is and what they do and how can we partner up with them, because that's important to do during that process, to actually go through with the final implementation. As Member COPPOLA talked about Marshall and some of the other projects that we had over the years, it's vital that we build those establishments and those connections, because at the end of the day, this is going to ensure that we do deliver transparency to the process, to include community buy-in. You know, my own constituent base would be communicated through me. I have an ID vote, so I do speak with my constituents daily, and part of that process for a new Pickering is to make sure that folks are updated, that communication is over-communicated, that make sure that we do not drop the ball on a new Pickering, and to make sure that we follow through. I want to emphasize, we need to follow through with this process to make sure that we do not lose out on this opportunity, because we can't. We're at a point, as we talked earlier, we're in a crisis for space. We need to make sure that that the process does include the Lynn community. And also not to put it on the taxpayer. We got to make sure that we're going to ensure that we are conducting business with due process to establish that, make sure that we don't have to do that again. With the new mayor, I think it's going to be, I have a lot of faith in leadership. And I also have a lot of faith in me, and I have a lot of faith in you guys too, and I'll work my ass off for you, so that's it.
Thank you, Candidate Castellanos. Candidate COPPOLA.
First of all, I sat on the last process where we tried to build the new Pickering High, and it went out for a vote. I sat on it with John Ford, and there were many people involved from City Hall. We had parents from Pickering who were asked to be on the committee, but the problem was all of the meetings were held during the day. Myself and John Ford, we tried to advocate, have the meetings in the evening. They were public meetings, but most people can't come at 11 in the morning or 1 in the afternoon. So that was definitely a problem right up with communication. But it also, what I saw a lot of people working. Definitely the Lynn teachers worked at that, and the union worked at it. Brand Duncan and worked at really hard. We had a lot of meetings outside, but the location was the problem. The cost to taxpayers was a problem. So it has to be different this time. It definitely has to be different. And we have to get everybody involved. We can't have the meetings inside of school buildings, so you can't say, well, we'll come at open house and we'll try to get them. I don't know, I'm sure if it's an ethics violation, but we're not allowed to do that. We had to meet outside of the schools. And we're going to have to go this time where people are, because you can invite them. And we went to a hall on Maple Street, on the second floor, and it was difficult to get people out. And then when we finally did have meetings, people felt as though they knew nothing about it. So it absolutely has to be different. I spoke at the North Shore Labor Council at my church and also one of the Spanish churches to try to get, built up. But we had a lot going against us. But this time will definitely be different, and I will be there to support it.
Thank you, Candidate COPPOLA. Candidate DUGAN.
So being a newcomer, obviously, hopefully a newcomer, onto the committee, you know, I wasn't part of the first Pickering, but what I do recall being a parent and being a citizen of Lynn was I really didn't know what was going on. You know, I was fortunate enough to have some friends that were, you know, part of the committees that Donna's speaking of, and I would often check in with them to find out what the process was, but if I didn't know those people, which many people don't, I would not have known what was going on. And so I think the lack of communication, the lack of transparency really foiled the Pickering project from the start. So it was really frustrating as a parent, as a taxpayer in Lynn, as a, you know, a citizen of Lynn, to not get those schools when they were pretty much, you know, ready to go for us. That being said, moving forward as a school committee member, I think one of the most important things to do to help with the MSBA process is just making sure we're working as a team, making sure the mayor's office, the school committee, the city council, we're all working together as a team. We're all communicating to our, you know, our voters and the people that have put us in office. You know, here's what's going on, here's the process, daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, whatever it takes. You know, we need to make sure that people are aware of the process and what's going to happen, so that if it does need to come to a vote again, you know, we don't get what we got. You know, I think currently in the process, we're in the, you know, just kind of the feeling out periods. We're making sure we have the budget, which it appears that we do, and the MSBA is ready to come back to the table because of some new legislation that's gone through, which is really great. Some of our state senators that have been working hard for the city of Lynn, which is really great. So I think just moving forward, making sure that the mayor's office, the city council, and the school committees, you know, holding those people's feet to the fire and, hey, let's get this to the committee, get this to the committee, let's vote on this, and making sure that, you know, we're true and we hold steady to that.
Thank you, Candidate Dugan. Candidate Gately.
Well, the last time it was a disaster. We all worked very hard. We were out knocking, we were talking. We pushed for it so hard, but it was like shoveling crap into the tide that kept coming back at us, and it was very negative. This time, I want to be on that committee. I want to make sure that we're getting out to the community, into the homes of people, and letting them know that this is what we need to do. We need to talk to them, tell them what's going in, inform them of what's going to happen, when the process is starting. Like in January, the committee's going to start. Right now, the MSBA is doing the planning. They're looking around the city, they're seeing different locations. So then we're going to sit down as a committee and discuss it. And like Donna said, I want those meetings in the evening. I don't want them in the afternoon when people can't make it. I want to get out into the community and ask those people in the community, what do you think of this property? Do you think we should put it right here? And get their input, because input is what's going to move this project forward. It has done that in the past. It did that with Thurgood Marshall, and I want Pickering in, and I want it in soon, as much as you do. And then I don't want to stop there. I want to go to the elementary schools. There are 2 right now that are in dire needs, and there's many, many, many more. I think maybe 10 more that need a serious look at it. And you know what I'm talking about, you teachers in this school right here. You know the schools I'm talking about, and we're going to get to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Gately. Candidate Lopez.
I want to add it to what my partner says, that even we do all of that, we need to make sure that the facility that we have in shoes, if we take a look in our city, we have a lot of buildings that they be vacancy, that we can take an advantage of that. So even the building that we have, I was thinking that if we look with a development person, an architect, and make a meeting with them, and see how the structural building is, and how can we repair them, and not be like spend money in demolitions, because we have a building in here that we can renovate them and make them to be working as how we want. It just we need to make a plan. It just we need to be working together, bring to the table many ideas, and give it form to them to have this process. We are ending that everybody get benefits from them. So I'm being like a little upset because I see that we just talking about money, about buildings, about this and that, but we don't really care about it with the main point that is that review the education and make sure that we're working for what we need first. So we have a lot of things to do first than be building things and renewable at the same time. But like I said, I think we need to see what is the main problem first. Then we can make a plan and make a development for them.
Thank you, Candidate Lopez. Candidate Magnolia.
Thanks. So in 2017, I had a kindergartner, and I pulled her around Black's Pond in a little red wagon, knocking on doors and trying to get people to vote for the new building plan. And as a parent, the only way I knew how to get involved with that is because Brian LaPierre happens to be my neighbor. As a parent, I went on the Lynn public school website to find out where the meetings were. Couldn't find any information. I went on the City of Lynn website. I understand it might have been there. I couldn't find it. I had no way of getting information just as a parent, not a current Pickering school parent, but a prospective parent, okay? And I'm saying this because meetings are awesome, but as a parent, I have about 15 minutes a day that's not spoken for. What do I want to do? I want to pull out my phone and I want to read an article while I'm standing in line at Market Basket and learn what's going on. If we don't look digitally, we are never going to get information out to the community. I'm just saying that right now, okay? So let's think about how parents want to access information and then deliver it to them that way. The second point is that we don't need a vote if we're going the process as it seems to be outlined right now, which means we have to be really deliberative about making sure that information is accessible to people, because technically we don't have to knock on doors like we did to convince them to do a vote, right? So the last thing I want to say is that right now in this process, which I've been following from the outside, I am not a current member of the school committee, as they're doing these studies for the MSBA, I would like to see the school committee advocate to build past capacity. What I mean by that is, when Marshall was built, it went past capacity like that, right? If we build the school for what we think is right now, we're going to be over capacity in 5 years without a question. I think the role of the school committee is to advocate for what we need in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Magnolia. Candidate Pena.
Yes, as a school committee member, I would be, trying to advocate working with the teachers union. There's a bunch of different subcommittees that work with the building and them, and I would be trying to, advocate with, our counselors to try to, push the process along. And how will I ensure that, to be transparent by having a weekly communications, and being, holding myself accountable, listening, going out to the community, listening to the teachers union, speaking to teachers and students. In my experience, as a youth worker, as an advocate with kids, I know how to communicate with parents. Being a bilingual American myself, I know how to communicate in Spanish, I'm fluent. So communication is very important in the other language. There are 65 languages spoken in Lynn, and I think communication and bringing things to light in different languages is very, very important, and it's key, to see, to try to get us to be in one place, because we have to communicate. We have to do this together, and I would strongly advocate, work with unions, our city, city officials, and our state legislators, and I would, fight my ass off, work my ass off for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Pena. Candidate Richard.
Thank you. So what I would do, as far as a school committee member, my role is really to gather information and get the community's input on what they want to do with these schools, where they want to put them, and really be an advocate and lobbyist for them. As far as transparency goes, you have to be as transparent as possible. And in that process, my feeling is you have to do anything and everything to get that voice out, whether it's door knocking, whether it's digital, whether it's having town halls. Everything has to be on the table when it comes to transparent communication. I remember I was door knocking this weekend and I spoke to two families. One was on Parkland Ave, the other one was behind Parkland Ave. And the gentleman told me that he found out about the Pickering School when they first started it. When they first started 4 years ago, he found out about that process in the newspaper. Nobody communicated with him at all. That was the first time he heard about it. And the second time when I spoke to another woman who was behind Parkland Ave, she said that she found out from a neighbor. Nobody knocked on her door, nobody sent her a flyer, nobody sent an email, nobody called her. Those kinds of things cannot happen. There needs to be more transparency, there needs to be more communication, and it needs to be done in many different forms and many different ways. And as a school committee member, if that means that I have to go knock on doors, if I have to send out emails, if I have to make phone calls to my constituents, I will do so to make sure that they are involved in this process. Because ultimately, that a school is going to go in their neighborhood. And I want to make sure that my constituents are okay with that and they like it, they want to be around a school. So once again, transparency and communication is going to be key. No matter what it takes, you have to get the job done in many different forms. I am all for it, and I will help out in the process any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken and Richard. Final question before we have our closing remarks. The Student Opportunity Act will ensure accurate funding for the public schools moving forward and has allowed LPS to increase the number of therapists and ESL educators to our ranks. Yet we are one of the lowest paying districts for our educators, especially those who have dedicated their careers to LPS. Attracting and retaining the best candidates for our staff is vital to LPS. The City of Lynn has offered other unions one-year deals with a 2.5% pay increase. The LTU does not feel this is appropriate nor fair in light of the SOA funding and the extraordinary working conditions our educators have faced over the past 18 months. Will you support the LTU's pursuit of a 3-year contract? How will you advocate for teachers, paraprofessionals, and therapists to receive a 3-year contract for 2021 to 2024? And Castellanos.
So this is twofold. So for the past 18 months, I've lived every day during the pandemic as a child protective service worker. I've partnered up with teachers, paras, social workers, administrators to address some of the most heinous situations that you could imagine. So when I see extraordinary working conditions for our educators, that's an understatement. Our teachers and staff and the people in this district kept afloat so much, and it's unbelievable the work that you guys do. And the compensation is a priority for me. Retention and addressing recruitment is a priority for me. You can write that down in your books. I'm on negotiations. We are working to establish that. We need to really focus on retention because we're losing some of our most talented educators in this district. And unfortunately, I get to hear from the teachers who leave and they go to other districts, and some of the top reasons is compensation. We need to really address that and put that on the forefront and really address that. And I'm hoping that, with my colleagues and the mayor and the folks, downtown, and just going to just what I do is to advocate. Negotiations is it's usually private, but you might not see me do it, but I'm always speaking up for our educators, because it was really the educators that really saved me from a lot. I'm here because of the educators, so I do want to fight for those multi-year contracts and to make sure that we're actually addressing that, because we need to ensure that our students are having the best educators around them so we can compete with other districts. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ken Castellanos. Ken COPPOLA.
I definitely support a 3-year contract. A 1-year contract, number one, for the Lynn Teachers Union, and as well as the negotiating subcommittee for the school committee. If you gave a 1-year contract, would be extremely difficult. The Teachers Union has 3 different contracts. So that means Sheila or whoever would be at the table practically the whole first year, just getting ready to renegotiate for a second and third contract. So it really doesn't make any sense. It might work wherever in the other part of the city that have done one-year contracts, but we shouldn't be aligned to what happened in other contracts. We should be looking at what's happened here. You know, we have gone through a really difficult 2-year period of time. You teachers know it, parents know it, we on the committee know it. I mean, we had hours and hours of Zoom meetings and things like that. So we're well aware of it. And also, we don't want to lose people because of pay. I can tell you a personal story. I have a young granddaughter, and she's been at Beverly School for the Deaf, and she's had an opportunity to come back and be in a first grade class. And she is absolutely excited. She's loving every minute of it. Everybody at that school has been totally receptive, all trying to learn sign language, to communicate with her. It's been wonderful. But she still doesn't have a speech therapist. So it's a concern, personally, but it's a concern because I know all of the gaps that we have out there. So, yeah, but I'm only one of 7 votes when it comes time to vote, for whether it's a 1-year or a 3-year contract.
Thank you. Hannah Dugan.
So I've mentioned a few times I'm a parent. I'm also a public school teacher. So I'm aware of the job that teachers do. It's the most critical part of a student's education, in my opinion, and I think most people would probably agree with me. We need to retain our teachers, and so a 3-year deal is not unreasonable. I don't feel that is unreasonable at all. In the town I teach in Danvers, we just got a 3-year deal, and I can tell you from experience, it lifts a weight off your shoulders. You can do your job with a little less stress. You can do your job with a little more confidence that, administrators have confidence in you. So it's critical. I mean, if we look around, Lynn, again, these are numbers right off the DESI website. Lynn's at about 79, Marblehead 83, where I teach Danvers, we're at 87. These are average salaries, PVD 85. There's no reason for that. We need to be competitive. We need to retain teachers. It's critical. Going through the schools with Pickering in particular, not to pick on the other schools, but my experiences with Pickering, my son would come home and often complain about the state of the school, but one thing he never complained about was his teachers. And from meeting those teachers and from the curriculum that was going forward and emails and communication with those teachers, they are dedicated people and we need to treat them as such. They are dedicated professionals and we need to treat them as such. And so it's really important. And so my role in the school committee, maybe advocate to get onto the negotiating committee in Danvers. I've been on 3 bargaining teams where we've negotiated contracts with the Danvers Teachers Union and the Danvers School Committee, so I have experience there, so maybe advocate to get on the negotiating team. But if I don't get on that team, checking in with that team, what's happening? Are we getting this deal done? Because I feel it's critical. We need to retain teachers. They're the first line of defense. Never mind the buildings, never mind all the other things we've been talking about. Without highly skilled teachers, without talented teachers, we go nowhere. So it's critical that we retain them. We need to be competitive and they need that 3-year deal.
Thank you, Candidate Dugan. Candidate Gately.
I definitely will support a 3-year contract when it comes in front of me. I'm not on negotiations, but when it comes in front of me, I'll definitely vote for it. I think the teachers deserve it. I think the teachers deserve a salary increase. I think it should be significant. They've worked their butts off. I just went to a school and I was talking to a bunch of people. I have all my notes, and the basic line comes from, they would like to see some respect in their salaries, some respect for the work that they do, a little less new initiatives thrown on their plates every year. I hear people maybe walking out this year because they just had it up to their eyeballs with all the new initiatives. So when it comes down to a 3-year contract, I will definitely be a yes. I was there in Malden with Sheila O'Neill, Donna Coppola, Brian Castellanos, fighting for that Student Opportunity Act. We are here for you. We will be here for you, and we're going to push for you to have what you deserve as far as schools, as far as monies, everything. You deserve it. You're the hardest working people I know. And I was one of you, and I understand what it's like not to feel appreciated and not get those salary increments, because at that time we didn't have the Student Opportunity Act, and we didn't have monies. We weren't getting money, so we got very little increases. And you're going to get it if it's up to Lorraine Gately. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Gately. Candidate Lopez.
Well, I will start saying that I don't want to speak a lot about it because I'm be starting all single proposal. And I'm thinking, I want to say that whoever decision we make, we need to take care, because it's not only one side is going to be affected, we're going to affecting a lot of people, and then we need to make sure to be concerning about this proposal and doing the best we can, and then less people going to be harmed with that. And definitely, I'm going to be at the side of the professor. I would like to have a good salary, and the one I want to be working at very hard is the respect, like Lorraine said, because I've been having my son at school. Stop. Ain't the time?
No, 1 minute.
Okay, so I see a lot of disrespect between a student and professor. And then that's one of my fighting in the salary of the professor. And then if I have the opportunity to be in the table, I'm gonna be fighting for all of that. And I make sure that I'm gonna be involved in all single capítulo of that.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Lopez. Candidate Magnolia.
So just a little bit about me. I've been a member of the Massachusetts Teachers Association for 18 years, and I have served on 2 negotiation committees for my local of the MTA. Now, we bargain directly with the state. We don't bargain with the school committee or a smaller entity. And there's been 2 times in our history where we've had to move our salaries significantly forward. And in both instances, we used a salary study to do that. This was jointly funded by the union and the state in order to make the case for a giant leap. In my experience, those giant leaps are necessary occasionally because salaries often lag due to lean times and then they never recover. So if I was elected to the school committee, I have no idea if I would serve on the negotiations committee or not. Since it's a separate union, there might not be any conflict of interest. But I might advocate for a salary study because it goes a really long way to convincing the public that this is a necessary giant leap. And in that, I think it's really important for the school committee to set the tone that we're not comparing, say, the ASME package to the LTU package. We're not comparing the various unions to each other because the various natures of what they do necessitate different asking packages, especially if what we're asking for on the school committee side are numbers increases of actual people as opposed to just salary. I haven't looked at the LTU contracts, so I can't speak specifically about them, but I can say that all of the experience I bring with my own negotiations means that I would be an advocate for teachers. I know at the higher ed level what we do is slightly different, but I think because I have looked at so many of those contracts, I might bring a perspective that would be unique. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Magnolia. Candidate Pena.
Yes, I will definitely support a 3-year contract. As a union member, and we're always constantly negotiating at the Lynn Water and Sewer, having a 3-year contract kind of gives you a little ease. You don't have to, worry, and I can identify with that. I will try to advocate also for teachers, paraprofessionals, our therapists, even the cafeteria workers. As a longtime union member, I know that unions bring quality, they bring strength and unity. And I heard something profound, something that struck out of me. I attended a school committee meeting at City Hall, and I heard Dr. Tutwiler say, I would put my team, my teachers against anyone in the country. And if we hold our teachers with that regard, then we need to pay our teachers. We need to fight. You deserve it. In 1983, my life was transformed when I met my 6th grade teacher. He left a lifelong impact on me, and I know that teachers are very special. They leave a very high impact on us as students, you know, and I hold teachers in a high regard. You know, teachers are underpaid, in my opinion. And as a union member, I promise to fight hard for you and everyone that's in the building, because together we run this, you know, and it takes a village to raise a child. Everyone's included, you know. I don't want to privatize nothing, you know. I know unions are strong, and as a union member, I will fight for you, and I promise that. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Richard.
So, as a 3-year contract, I could definitely see myself supporting that contract. But I foremost want to say, I wouldn't be in this seat if it wasn't for Lynn Public School teachers. I went through the system. You guys are the reason why I'm here and I have this opportunity. And I understand, and I've spoken to a lot of teachers and how underappreciated they feel, how underpaid they feel. And going through the system, I've seen the kind of time and dedication and their own money that they have to put into these schools. And it's heartbreaking because they're trying to live on a wage, but also help their kids out. So I have a ton of respect for teachers, and having a son who's autistic, who's nonverbal in the school department as well, I see the amazing work that these teachers do for these kids. And just day in and day out, the stress that goes on in those classrooms is immense. And having a child like that, I can see how they can feel underappreciated. So absolutely, I would support this and making sure that our teachers are getting paid what they feel they deserve. Because otherwise, they're going to go to other school departments, which isn't right. We need to keep our talent here. It is extremely important that the kids see familiar faces throughout the schools, that they understand that their teachers aren't leaving, that they're staying in these schools, because I know for me, it was a big part of my life, and it's a big part of why I'm here, because of Lynn Public Schools and the teachers that I had. They put belief in me, they made sure that I was comfortable, they gave me the best quality education that I got, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Lynn Public School teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Richard, and thank you all candidates. We will now start closing statements. You will have 2 minutes. Candidate Castellanos.
I just want to say thank you to all the educators who wrote today. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I've been honored and humbled to serve on the school committee for the last 4 years. It's been one of the most remarkable experiences of my life, and I owe a lot to the educator. I always share this quote often when I'm in any public space. It's the children the world almost breaks who grow up to save it, by Frank Warren. It's vital to I think my vulnerabilities, I've shared them publicly, in private and public, and it's been something for me that I can never pay it back, because the students that I get to work with and the families that I get to engage with and the teachers I get to work with every day, they teach me to never give up. I fight every single day. I really, when we talk about speaking up about contracts or curriculum, every issue that's on my table, I pursue it rigorously. I don't let things sit still. I'm very proactive. What you see is what you get. I remain transparent and accessible. During that pandemic, I've had conversations with educators during some of the most scariest times of their careers, and I've been there in the trenches. As a child welfare person, I've been there during trauma and really tragic events. I take this very personal. I take this job serious. I've given this job everything I have. I'm a man of action, and I really, just to echo, I hear everyone say, everyone's here is inspired by their educators and teachers, but at the end of the day, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You just got to step up. I really don't got. That's all I got to say. You vote. I'm asking 1 of 6 votes. Your voice is at the table. I already said what I said about compensation, and I said what we need to say about buildings. So simple as that.
Thank you. Candidate COPPOLA.
Thank you. I have always been a strong advocate for the students, staff, and their families. I show up, I listen, and I work every day to make Lynn Public Schools the best for every student. And the other thing is I never back down. I always ask the hard questions and take the hard votes. I don't shy away from them, and I'm willing to take them. I never regretted sending my 4 kids or any of the 19 foster kids that did attend the Lynn Public Schools. I never regretted it once, and I was proud to send them here. And they're actually proud to be graduates of the Lynn Public School System. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future. It's going to be a new committee, a different committee. I'm sure whoever comes on will be adding new excitement. And I hope that you give me one of your votes to send me back to the Lynn School Committee. I would just like to make a little thing so that everybody understands how the school building, the Mass School Building Associations work. We can't take the old schools and gut them out and then just build from the bottom and get money from them. It's really not possible, and financially the city couldn't do that on their own. So building new schools is the right way to go. But that's another thing, we don't get the full amount of money. And as far as the number of students, when the Mass Building Association came in, they told us how many we could build for Classical and Thurgood Marshall. So you have to understand that, we're really controlled by them. We don't operate the same way KIPP could go out there, got a building, get money from all over the place. We're not able to do that. It's a different process for us. So just one of your votes, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And DUGAN.
So Mark Twain once said, the 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. The first time I walked into a classroom, I found out why. I'm an educator at heart, and I bring that to the table, should you elect me to school committee. I'm up on educational trends. I understand best practices of teachers. I've done everything in the educational field, from negotiating contracts to being on hiring committees where principals and other teachers were hired. So I bring that value to the committee. But also, I'm a parent. Both of my sons went through Lynn Classical. My oldest graduated in the spring, got a really good education. He took what he can from the Lynn Public Schools, and we're really happy, to say that he's gone beyond and he's at Anna Maria College and doing well. And my youngest is a junior at Classical. So I have a horse in the race. I have a vested interest in what happens in the schools because it directly affects my family and it directly affects me. And I think that's a really important piece. And then also my community work. I've done lots of coaching in the community, from Lynn Youth Soccer to East Lynn Little League, where I was a part of, St. Pius CYO, which is no longer around, unfortunately. And I was also the president of Wyoming Little League. And I did lots of things to help the city of Lynn as the president of Wyoming Little League, lots of upgrades to the fields. One of the most important was the Linwoods field. If you like to hike up in Linwoods, you'll notice that fence was upgraded a few years ago. I was instrumental in getting that done. So I bring lots of experience to the table. I bring lots of passion for teaching and learning to the table. So I ask you on November 2nd, I'm number 5 on the ballot, one of your 6 votes, Eric Dugan, Lynn School Committee.
Thank you. Candidate Gately.
Well, most of you know that I was an educator for 33 and a half years in Lynn Public Schools. I walk the walk you're walking, and when you call me, I act. If you call me up, or you let me know, or if I hear about an issue, you know that I'm going after those issues and I'm finding out the answer. I'm finding out the answer from 2 perspectives. If I don't like the answer and I don't understand it, I'll go a step higher. Like all the time, we get phone calls. I'm on the phone calling up different organizations, state schools, whatever I have to do to find the answer to your question to help you make it better for you in your classroom. I don't like to hear that teachers are having a hard time. I was very upset today for my little visit. My little visit that was supposed to be to drop off a card to someone turned out to be 2.5 hours, and I learned an awful lot about all the extra initiatives. I don't like finding out about these extra initiatives after the fact. So I'm going to, first of all, thank you for inviting me here tonight. I love Lynn Teachers Union. You know I love Lynn. I have worked really hard for you for the past 3 terms, and I would like to continue to work for you for another 2 years. Get Pickering in. I worked for Lynn Schools 33 and a half years. I have experienced Lynn Public Schools as a student, as a teacher, and as a son going to Lynn Public Schools, a parent. So I would appreciate one of your 6 votes on November 2nd on number 3 on the ballot. Thank you very much. Let me continue to work for you.
Thank you. Candidate Lopez.
Well, I'm not recognized like everyone else because I've been working at the community, and then I was working with David Gas to have the garden at Cook Street, and the same fight that I do for making that happen, I will gonna do being in the school committee if I get one of the 6 votes. And then I'm gonna be working as the professor, being with a good pay, be respect, and I'm gonna be fight for all cause that the parent come to me or call me. Everybody know in the city what type of job I do for them. They know that everybody who has a problem at the school and look for me, I'll be there all the time. I do counseling for parents, and that's not my job, but most of the people look for me for that. And as of right now, I think that I do a good services for them, and I know that I can be implemented at the school committee when I get there. And then I don't want to promise, but I know that if I pass, I'm going to be doing a lot of projects and benefit of the professor and the student and the parents. My goal is that the parents and the professor and the school working together, and that way we're going to have a student happy to go to school and teacher happy to be teaching, because the parents, professor, and the school working together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Magnolia.
Thank you. So I bring a lot of experience to this role. Obviously, I'm not on the school committee right now, but I do bring the experience of a parent with a child at Sisson who will be going to Pickering regardless of what happens. And she's moved through Lynn Public Schools, and I've been able to see not just her own experiences, but I'm also a Girl Scout leader, and I've had a troop since the kids were in kindergarten. So I've been able to see girls from around the city and taking advantage of a lot of the different resources we have. I've also got the perspective of higher ed, and I have to say, when North Shore Community College built its addition, we had to lobby DCAM, which is the higher ed version of the MSBCA. We had to lobby for things that we wanted. I know that there is a role for lobbying entities of the state of Massachusetts for things that you want, and I know how to do that. I also have the perspective that I was a political action lobbyist with the Massachusetts Teachers Association for a year when that program got started, working with the K-12 locals around Essex County, connecting them with their legislators. I know how to advocate from the specific instances of individual cities and towns with the state for what they want. I'm also a structural thinker. What I mean by that is, one of my frustrations as a parent on the outside has been the ways that I cannot access the school committee. And I really want to think structurally about how we invite or how we discourage access to decision-making within the city. I think accessibility, equity, inclusion for students, for families, also though for teachers. We have to think structurally about how we invite participation in decision-making, and I will bring that to the table if I'm elected. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Pena.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, teachers and everyone who came in and sat here. Thank you very much. My name is Lenny Pena. I'm a lifelong Lynn resident. I have 3 adult children that went to the Lynn Public School System. I went to the Lynn Public School System myself, and I have 3 young children in the Lynn Public School System. So I'm committed for a long term here in our school system. I also work for the city of Lynn. I work for the Lynn Water and Sewer, so I'm always out in the community, especially during storms. You can see me. I'm out there working hard, and I'm a big advocate with the youth. You know, I volunteer a lot of my time with kids. I love children. I am co-founder of New England Youth Football Tackle. I remember coming to the school committee meeting, trying to see if we can pass some curriculum and stuff, and I'm the director of the Outlaws football program. So I bring a lot of experience dealing with children. And also I'm a homeowner, a taxpayer, and as a parent. You know, if elected, I'm gonna bring some energy, you know, a little different fresh air. You know, one of my biggest drinkers. I go and go and go, and you can always contact me anytime. You know, I'm out there. I'm engaged in our community. From getting involved in the shelter, going to DYS, speaking to kids. You know, whatever it takes, I'm engaged in, and I love children. You know, I humbly ask for one of your 6 votes. You know, on November 2nd. You know, and if elected, one thing I do, I will promise that I will work my ass off for you. I will fight, and fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Richard.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So thank you, Sheila O'Neill, Lynn Teachers Union, for showing up, putting on this forum. This was a great night, great forum. What I want to say is, as a product of the Lynn Public School Systems, I understand what it's like not only to be a student to go through the Lynn Public School Systems, but also what it's like to be a parent of a student who's going through the Lynn Public School Systems. I serve on many different boards of nonprofits. I'm the chairman of the Lynn Community Connections Coalition with board member Brian CASTELLANOS and DONNA as well, who serve under youth, who serve our most vulnerable populations with food, clothing, diapers, and we help these families get the access to all these resources that they need. I serve on the Lynn Museum Board. I serve on the Municipal Finance Board from the City of Lynn as well. I have a house in Lynn. I grew up in Lynn. I still here in Lynn. I'm committed to this community, and I'm committed to the kids and making sure that these kids, overall, number one, are getting the quality education that they need and that they deserve. And what I always say is, nobody's going to work harder than I am. If you want to talk about availability, I learned very early on one of the best qualities to have is availability. If you're worried about not being able to reach a school committee member or being able not to speak to somebody on the school committee, you can rest assured that I will be that voice for you. You can reach out to me, you can call me 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, I will pick up that phone because I know what it's like to have a kid. I know what it's like to be in the school systems. I know the stress that kids and teachers go through. I know what parents go through. It's very stressful. So I respectfully ask for one of your 6 votes. I'm number 7 on the ballot. And if you do want to contact me, my phone number is 781-244-0194. So if you do want to reach out to me, feel free to do so. Thank you.
That was gutsy.
Availability.
Thank you, Candidate Richard. Thank you, transparency. Thank you for coming. Have a great night. In a few moments, we will begin the Mayoral Candidates Forum.
All right, good evening. We're going to continue on with our public education forum with the mayor, the candidates for mayor. We have Mr. Darren Sear and Mr. Jared Nicholson. Our moderator will continue. It is Phil. The candidates for mayor will have 5 minutes for opening and closing statements and 4 minutes to respond to each question, and there are 4 questions. So we will begin. Phil, come on up.
Don't fall asleep on me.
Hi again, everyone. So like Sheila just said, we're going to have 5 minutes for opening statements. So candidates here, if you go first.
So thank you. I've lived the Lynn Life experience for 62 years. Grew up on Herschel Street, went to Holy Family Church, Avon School, where my sons graduated from, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. So obviously I've been invested in the city. Went to Easton Junior High School, graduated from Lynn Tech. My wife graduated from Classical. She grew up in Westland on Moulton Street. She had 12 brothers and sisters. My 2 boys both graduated from Lynn English. I've been involved in youth sports my whole life. Baseball, hockey, soccer, football, basketball. If I didn't play it, I was coaching it. I've I've been involved in many different programs and things throughout the city. The Millennium, back in 2000. Worked in Mayor McManus's office in the 90s. Been a city council president for 16 years, council president for the last 4.5, 5 years. So I'm very experienced in tackling problems, everything from the pandemic to budget woes. And I know we have a real serious problem in this city with our schools. We have to tackle it. We can't afford to build one school every 5 to 10 years. Pickering is in the line, we've got to get that done, but we've got to take another look at the way we're going to be building our elementary schools. We have 28 schools in the city, 50% of them are over 100 years old. They have to be taken care of. You need a better place to educate. When I first got elected, I worked on getting the Marshall Middle School built. Worked with the school committee and the city council and the neighborhood, getting everybody on board. Working together as a community. It's a state-of-the-art school. All the kids and the teachers that work in our system and go to it for learning deserve the same as the kids that are going to Easton Junior High. I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and all the educators for teaching remotely. I can't stand being on Zoom. I can't stand that we all have to still walk around with masks. I can't imagine what it's like to teach every single day in these blistering hot buildings right now that aren't air conditioned. There's no climate control. Easton Junior High has that. I understand that our teachers here in Lynn are number 4 in the least paid in the state. That's not right. It's not fair. We have to do a better job creating, can you hear it raining out there? It's pretty amazing, isn't it? But this is the greatest city in Lynn. And as I said earlier in my introduction, I think I've proven myself with my leadership. I've always said leadership by example. Lynn Tech, the teachers there were so amazing that they brought talents out in me that I didn't even know I had. I wasn't a great student, school wasn't my thing, but when I got to Lynn Tech, they gave me opportunities that I never had. They helped me get a job. They gave me the ability to be able to draw my own plans for my own house. And when I brought them to a structural engineer to stamp them, the only thing he said to me when I asked him how much I owed him was that he wanted those plans and use them to sell. Then I built my own house. Lynn Tech gave me the ability to do that. I've always had to work 2 jobs my entire life. I'm not a suit coat and tie guy. I admit that right up front. I always say it. I'm a boots and callus kind of guy. Sometimes I work as many as 3 different jobs in the same day. And right now, I go and I work my full-time job, which I'm getting ready to take a leave of absence from. Come home, I work as ward councilor in Ward 3, which I've been councilor there for 16 years. Then I do my council president stuff, and now I'm the candidate for mayor. There are some nights where I walk in after midnight and I got to get up at 5 o'clock and go to work. I've always been a hands-on, 7-day-a-week, 24-hour days kind of person. I put 110% in everything. I eat, sleep, and breathe Lynn. Please, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates here. Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. My name is Jared Nicholson. I'm running for mayor to help with the recovery from COVID and to push for growth that benefits the whole city, that includes all of us. As many of you know, I'm a member of the Lynn School Committee and have been for 3 terms. I'm also in my day job a professor at Northeastern at the law school, and I'm also a dad to my young son Henry, who's almost 2, and a husband to my wife Catherine, who's a nurse midwife at Mass General. I got started in founding a legal aid practice on Union Street that provides free legal help to low-income entrepreneurs and small businesses in support of community growth. And from early on, I saw the importance of the connection between education and economic development for our city's future. I was elected to the school committee 6 years ago. I'm really excited in this race for mayor. I'm able to draw on the deep experience that I have in education as a member of the school committee, someone who works in higher education, as well as the deep experience that I have on city issues, from my work as a lawyer and a law professor on issues like housing and economic development. I'm running for mayor because I believe I have the skills and experience to provide leadership for inclusive growth, to both create opportunities for growth and to make those opportunities inclusive. I bring a fresh perspective to that work based on my work as a lawyer and a law professor, work with other cities on economic development. I also have a record of delivering results right here in Lynn. For example, my work on the school committee that started a wrestling team, got involved in that even before I was on the school committee, and we started a wrestling team in Lynn with teams at the middle school and the high school level. I run a tournament every summer down on the beach with youth to give opportunities to add something that was missing from the city. Put together a team to make a difference and make it happen. I also have a track record of my work on the school committee of working directly with educators on programs. I have developed an initiative working with a team of my colleagues on the school committee, with the team in the public schools, on a specific initiative that allows students from around the district to learn job skills after school at Lynn Tech, recognizing the importance of the opportunity of the Lynn Tech and the limitation that Lynn Tech has on its enrollment because of the way, the nature of vocational education and the demand that there was from around the district for those kinds of opportunities. I also have a record of being there for people when they need it. As someone who is open, who is accessible, who delivers results. And I've done that time and time again, working with educators and teachers who have reached out to me, working with students, working with families, and particularly working with families, my ability to speak Spanish has been really helpful. And I am excited about this opportunity here to bring that record, along with the vision of inclusive growth that we're building on this campaign, this grassroots campaign that's reaching all corners of the city, to talk about the opportunity that we have to move forward in Lynn. I'm excited to bring that to City Hall. You all know the importance that the mayor plays in education in the city. The mayor is the chair of the school committee. Schools are almost half the city's budget. And I have been honored to have the opportunity to work with you as a member of the Lynn School Committee for the last 6 years, and I'm thrilled at the chance, the hope to be able to continue that work in the role as mayor with your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken Nicholson. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Our first question, as stakeholders in the public schools, we're all aware that the physical learning environment has a direct, profound impact on the health and performance of our students. Similarly, this prevents educators from meeting the diversities of the populations we serve, from essential academic standards to the social-emotional needs. Sadly, many Lynn schools have been identified as in need of extensive repair or replacement. If elected as mayor, will you commit to work with Lynn Teachers Union to advocate for essential repairs and replacement of buildings beyond repair? Why or why not? Please answer yes or no before your explanation. Candidates here.
So, my answer is absolutely yes. I think
Excuse me, Darren, but you're going to have to keep the mask on. It is a city.
I can't hear you, sir.
You have to keep the mask on even when you're speaking.
Okay.
That's the rule for the city of Lynn.
All right, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
So, anyway, absolutely yes. I would be in favor of that. I think I've proven that to the teachers union when we were trying to build the middle school just a few years ago, Pickering. I stood on the front lines with many teachers, some school committee members, and city councilors to get a new school built. It was actually 2. And I went around knocking on doors and I helped raise funds for that campaign. As I said earlier when I opened up, that I worked diligently in East Lynn to get a new Marshall Middle School built. And I really truly feel that every single student in this city and every single teacher deserves the same equal kind of building, state-of-the-art building to teach in. So I will do whatever it takes to get schools built. I actually have a plan. I have met with the MSBA. I have met with the governor and talked to him about this situation. We as a city cannot afford to build one school every 5 to 10 years. It's absolutely not going to work. Because by the time we get finished building the 100-year-old schools that we have, Lynn Classical is going to become 75 to 100 years old. Lynn Tech is considered to be a new school. It's almost 50 years old. Drive around the city and take a look at the condition of our buildings. And just tonight alone, the Lynn City Council voted on setting down for a public hearing so that we can, on the city side, take out a $15 million bond to fix the windows and the doors at Lynn Tech. That's the 50-year-old building that I'm talking about. From the city side, on top of the $160+ million that we put into the school budget, we have to come up with always, every single year, another $25 to $50 million in repairs and doing, different things to different buildings. The problem is simple. It's always been about neglect because we've never had the money for preventative maintenance on our buildings. And now, and a perfect example is how I can bring us together to work together between the Lynn City Council, the Mayor's Office, and the school committee, is what we just did with Marshall Middle School. And I know that Lynn is a land-poor city, and that there are people that wanted to land back that property down there. But it just didn't make sense because of the location. There's a school 2 blocks over from it. The neighborhood is too densely populated to support a school, and the streets are too narrow. What we got to do is come up with locations in our city, like they're doing in other communities, in other cities, and in other states. They're creating one elementary school for as many as 4 or 5 different buildings. We have the maintenance of one building. We can put a state-of-the-art facility for grammar schools with a gymnasium, cafeteria, a science lab, and a library. I mean, it's just so amazing what the possibilities are. And I always say this, Lynn's always last, and the train's always left the station when we're walking into the station. You all, everybody out here that works every single day, it spends more time with some of the kids than some of their parents do. I get it. We got to work together, and we haven't really done that as a city with all the different groups, from the mayor's office to the council to the school committee. And I do really truly believe that everyone deserves a seat at the table. We're not always going to agree on everything. But 20, 30, 40% of something is better than 100% of nothing. It's called compromise. That's something I learned at Lynn Tech. So I do have the ability to do that, and I think I've proven it over the years, being a city council, being involved in all the different programs throughout the city that I've been involved in. I've lived here and I've experienced what it's like to go to Easton Junior High School where the ceiling is falling down, or Avon where the ceiling is falling on people's heads, or the brick wall is falling off, where you can't open a window to let air in. It's just unfair. And I will work diligently to make all of our lives better, whether you're a teacher, a pupil, or just a taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely yes. We all know that we need new schools. The physical state of our schools is unacceptable. The physical state of the schools in the community is a reflection of the priority that community puts on education. And I know that the city of Lynn cares more about education than the physical state of our schools would suggest. But we have to show that. We have to show that by building new schools, by fixing the schools that need repair. And what I love about this question is that it is going to require collaboration, and the Lynn Teachers Union is a key part of that collaboration. We need new schools both because physical conditions of our schools are unacceptable, and we need more classrooms. One of the big drivers of overcrowding and large class sizes is the fact that we don't have enough space. And then over the last year and a half, we've seen even another reason why the physical state of our schools are unacceptable, and it's the public health consequences. We've had to spend millions of dollars to update the buildings that should have been updated years ago. We were paying the price today for decisions that were made 40 years ago to save money that we're living with now, that our students and teachers and educators are dealing with. We never had a chance to go back to school in person when the Commonwealth of Massachusetts was demanding that schools open their doors in a time where it would have been safe, because we couldn't have physically distanced in the way that other communities could, because our class sizes were too big, because we didn't have the proper ventilation. We need to bring urgency to address these priorities, and it's going to require collaboration. So one important area of collaboration is going to be around reforming the school construction formula. Hopefully, we can do everything right when it comes to building a new Pickering, and that gets done. But there's 4 or 5 new schools after that we need to build. And under the current system, under the current state formula, we're not going to have the funds to do that. We need the state to step up. And the good news is that you all have experience on this issue. You all put together a team to make the Student Opportunity Act happen. That was a long time coming, and it fixed a long-standing issue, which was that the state wasn't providing the adequate resources that it costs to educate our student population. The school budget formula was out of date. It cost more to educate our students because of the issues they were dealing with outside the classroom, because of the extra work it requires for students who are learning English to catch up, because of the disproportionate number of special education students that we have. And the way the state education is supposed to work is that every student in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is constitutionally guaranteed the right to a public education, and the state was not living up to that promise. And so a coalition was built to demand reform, and we won. We have the Student Opportunity Act. Now we got to continue to hold people's feet to the fire to make sure that that's funded and that we implement it correctly and it achieves the benefits that we're expecting it to, but that's a win. And we need to take that playbook and we need to bring it to school construction formula. We did operating budget, we did the yearly allocation to schools to hire staff and to pay staff. Now we need to do the building budget, the capital budget. And that's going to require collaboration with Lynn Teachers Union. The other area of collaboration with the Lynn Teachers Union I think is really important is around working with the community to create the understanding of the issue of the need and bring people in. The transparency, the outreach, the work that it takes to sort of lay the groundwork for these kinds of investments. And that's absolutely a responsibility of City Hall, of the Lynn Public Schools, and it starts at the top with the mayor's office, but that requires deep collaboration with stakeholders to be able to get information out in ways that's accessible, and the Lynn Teachers Union is a key partner in that work. So the answer to this question for me is absolutely a strong yes. This is a top priority for the city, and it is going to require that kind of collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan Nicholson. Question 2. In April 2021, Lynn entered the eligibility period for a new Pickering Middle School. As mayor, what is your role in assisting the city and the school department in moving through the MSBA process? How will you ensure the transparency of the process for our community? Where are we currently in this process? Candace here.
So we've already applied, we've been accepted to go into it, we're in the beginning stages. But the real thing here is bringing the public into the decision-making part of it. And that's why it failed the last time, because the public wasn't fully aware of what was going on. I'm not going to blame anybody whose fault that was, but from the very start, as soon as we start the process, the public has to be involved. The meetings have to be open. They can't be done at times when people are at work. They have to be televised. And they have to be done in a room just like this, or in the city council chambers. It's that simple. Now, as I said earlier, that I've already talked to the MSBA about different things, about ways we can build schools and how we need to do it here in Lynn. So if we were just able to take between 5 and 10% of our net school spending and use that money towards building new schools, we could probably build the schools that we need to build in the next 15 to 20 years. Why is Saugus building a brand new high school in Revere and all these other communities? Take a look at what Chelsea did a few years back. Built all new schools in their city. And it's just, we've got to do a better job informing the teachers, informing the public, and getting the students involved in it. We just never do that. When somebody makes a decision, and then they just tell everybody the way it's going to be. And that's wrong. As I said earlier, I believe in bringing everybody to the table and listening to everybody's concerns and why they want a school in this area and why they don't want it in that area. And why it makes sense to build certain size schools. When we were doing Marshall, the MSBA said they were only going to allow us to build a school for a population of 800 students. So I was on the building committee. John Ford, I believe, was on that building committee, as Rick Starbuck was, and some of the other school committee people. And we said, you know what, let's bring the MSBA here. Let's take them around that area, that neighborhood, and drive them down Timpson Street and Williams Ave. Jackson Street. Show them the density of that neighborhood. Show them the need, why those students need a better building to be educated in. Why those teachers need a better building to educate in. It was almost like a miracle because the building was done earlier than what it was projected to be. So the students and the teachers went on April vacation. When they left on Friday and they came back, a week later on a Monday, they were going into a brand new building. And you could see the attitude of the kids changed completely. They felt like, geez, this is something so amazing. I never thought that there was a possibility that I could be taught in a building like this. But more importantly, the teachers' attitudes changed overnight. It was an amazing experience. Now, and when we brought the MSBA, they increased the population, I believe, up to 1,200. But it is one of many schools in the city which the population now is exploded in those schools. We have students at English High School that are being taught in a trailer. That's unacceptable to me. It's pretty cool that my great-grandmother went to the same school that I went to on Eastern Ave. But it's unacceptable that your kids have to go into school that's 120 plus years old. I know if I was a teacher, I wouldn't want to be going to work every day in that building. But the teachers do a great job in that building. They really do educate. I will do everything I can to get new schools built in the city, and I won't do it in a way that's going to raise everybody's taxes. So every time it goes up for a vote, because we may have to override, they won't vote for it. You have to explain what the benefit is to all of us by building new schools. And the people that new schools will attract, the families into our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Sir Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. So as mayor, our role in assisting the city and the school department is to provide leadership for the whole effort. And there's a reason why the mayor, whose office is in City Hall, sits as the chair of the school committee. And it's to provide that interaction between the school department and City Hall, to make sure that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. And the mayor plays a really important part of that effort, specifically on the school building, because it really is a collaborative effort all across the city to make this work. The other sort of main responsibility that the mayor has is making sure that we are in a financial position to be able to afford to do our part. The way the MSBA works is that we have a substantial reimbursement for the cost of building a new school, but we are on the hook for our percentage. And the mayor who writes the budget, working with the city council to approve it, has that responsibility to make sure there's enough funds to set aside that we can get through that process, incur the necessary expenditures, and be in a position to afford what it is that we're planning. And that requires ongoing effort to monitor and make sure that that's going to be the case. Transparency is a key part of this whole effort. So this is something that I've worked on already in my role on the school committee. We had a conversation, as we do every year recently, about the superintendent's goals for the year. And one of the goals that was missing in the initial draft of the conversation was specifically targeting about what's going on with the school construction process. And understanding that this isn't something that's in the superintendent's office, on the superintendent's office desk right at this moment. There's not a deliverable that's due tomorrow. But recognizing that we need people who can be proactive about communicating what's happening, we suggested to add that to the superintendent's goals, to say, what are we doing now to prepare ourselves to be able to communicate what's happening through this process? So that people don't have to wonder what's happening. The information's right there, right? And not just right there, the information is proactively being shared. We all have a lot going on in our lives. Our citizens have a lot going on in their lives. Government today needs to be able to reach people where they're at. And that requires that kind of proactive communication. And it's not just public meetings either. We're fortunate tonight to all be here together. There were certainly moments over the course of the last year and a half where that was not possible. And there's a lot of people who would like to be involved, but they can't be here tonight. They have mobility issues or childcare responsibilities. Or they didn't want to go out in the rain, whatever it is. And we have the technology to be able to include those folks as well. And that requires work. And it's going to require real investment in our city's digital infrastructure. If you've been on the Lynn City's website recently, you'll see that it needs an upgrade. It's the same website essentially as the school website, so you know that it needs an upgrade. And that's a great tool to be able to share this kind of information and create that kind of transparency that what we're talking about. In terms of where we are in the process, we did submit the statement of interest last year. That was accepted. And so we're in the eligibility period. There's a lot of work right now in putting the team together on the city side and working with the MSBA to run through their process. They have a very sort of strict formulaic process to design the plans. And we're in the middle of that now. And it's the perfect moment to be laying the groundwork for the communication strategy. That's what's going to earn trust in the community. Have a huge win for us in building this new Pickering and show the state that we can run this great process, show our city that we have the financial wherewithal, that we have the capabilities to provide the transparency communication they're looking for, to believe in the plans that we're putting together, and then go out and start racking up the wins and building the schools that we know that our city needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken Nicholson. All right, question 3. The Student Opportunity Act will ensure accurate funding for Lynn Public Schools moving forward. Excuse me. It has allowed LPS to increase the number of therapists, ESL educators to our ranks, yet we are one of the lowest paying districts for our educators, especially those who have dedicated their careers to LPS. Attracting and retaining the best candidates for our staff is vital to LPS. The City of Lynn has offered other unions 1-year deals with a 2.5% increase. The LTU does not feel this is appropriate or fair in light of the SOA funding and the extraordinary working conditions our educators have faced over the past 18 months. Will you support the LTU's pursuit of a 3-year contract for 2021-2024? Candidates here?
Yes. I've always been a union dues paying member my entire working career, even when I've owned businesses. I've always had to work 2 jobs, like I said. People think because you own your own business that you're a millionaire. That's not the case. But I know what it's like to sit and negotiate a contract on both sides of the table. And I do believe that a 1-year contract isn't fair to the union members. I truly believe that a 3 or a 4-year contract is better. And you have to be, think out of the box when you're negotiating contracts from both sides. And sometimes it makes sense to do every 6 months a pay raise rather than every year, I'm sorry. So what I mean by that is, if you're going for a 3 or a 4% raise, then sometimes it's easier and it makes more financial sense to do 1.5 every 6 months. So in the end, you actually get a little bit more, but the city or the state or whoever it may be that's doing that contract actually makes out with it too. Because in the end, you wind up most times with a little bit more. So when you go to retire, that helps you out with retirement. I don't know what each teacher's responsibility is. That's something I have to learn. I'm going to be right up front about that. But as I said, I'm 7 days a week, 24 hours. I will sit and learn about the entire school department and how it operates. I've gone through the school system as a student. I've gone through the Lynn school system as a parent. I've met a lot of teachers along the way, a lot of facilitators, and a lot of principals. When I was younger, it wasn't always a good thing when I was sitting in the principal's office. But when my kids went to Avon School, I went through Avon in the 60s. Tom Fogarty was still the principal when my sons went through the school. And I always knew him as Mr. Fogarty. And I can tell you, I wasn't one of his favorite students. But my sons were 2 of his favorite students. And I became friendly with them, and I became friendly with the teachers. And I saw what they were experiencing in that school, and that's when I became a counselor. And when I first was going into Marshall Middle School and seeing the conditions that the teachers were teaching in and the kids were learning in, and my boys both went there, and both of them graduated in the old Marshall School. I knew teachers like Mr. Fire, Mr. Bennett, the Mahoney brothers. I mean, I go way back in the system. My favorite all-time teacher was Mr. Posey, a woodshop teacher who took me under his wing and got me into Lynn Tech. That's part of the Lynn life experience. Growing up, so I will do everything I can to help the teachers in our city. As I said earlier, we're the 4th lowest paid in the state of Massachusetts. Chelsea, Lawrence, and I think Springfield are the ones that are lower than us. Back in the 90s, believe it or not, we were the highest paid teachers. What's happened in the last 30 years? I know our school committee works hard. I know our council works hard, and I know our mayor has, and our superintendent. We bring in roughly $160 million in tax revenue. Our school budget is over $160 million. A lot of the money does come from the state. We have to come up with better ways of bringing in revenue into the city. And the way that we should do that is, and I call it our future industry, is through development. Because I really, truly believe the only way we're going to break the cycle of poverty is through better education and creating higher paying jobs. And you play the major key role in that as teachers. So I will do everything I can to support you as mayor.
Thank you, candidates here. Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. Yes, I believe that's appropriate. I think that, particularly after the last year and a half with all that educators have been asked to do, particularly given the fact that we now have the resources to be able to make these kinds of investments in retaining our educators, and the context of having been in a position where we didn't have those resources over the last several years, and the sacrifices that educators made to help the city through a really difficult time. I think now is the time to have an appropriate, fair, long-term contract. I do believe that. I believe that as mayor, you'll find me to be a really productive negotiating partner. I think I've established a record of doing that in my work on the school committee. My first term, I was the chair of the negotiation subcommittee and believe that we had a great working relationship. I think you'll find that to continue as mayor, someone who's a good listener, who's willing to sit down and hear what it is that someone is asking for and why, and really step back and think through that why. And not, tell them what they really want, but listen to hear what they're saying. And to trust the frontline workers, the people who are interacting with our students day in and day out about what the needs of the district are. And I think that experience specifically is really helpful in the mayor's role because of the interaction between, it's kind of a complicated negotiation because it's multi-party. You have the school committee, you have the negotiation subcommittee, you have the administration that has a lot of the detailed day-to-day work, you have the teachers union, and then you have the mayor, who is very much a stakeholder in that whole negotiation and in the role that they play with the budget. And that's a complicated multi-party negotiation that I have experience with, and I think it's going to be a really important process for us to move forward with successfully to succeed as a district. I think another sort of issue as we think about this is retention overall, but particularly retention for some of our senior teachers who have been with the district for a very long time, have spent their entire careers here, and the particular comparisons that they may see in looking at other districts and think about that as a sort of long-term recruitment strategy. We are hiring, and that's good news. We have the resources to be hiring, but we can't forget retaining the people that we have because that's a wealth of experience. And I know how committed our teachers are to sharing that experience with the people that we're hiring. I mean, I think that's what part of what makes us so strong as a district. I've seen the professional development that you all do, that the teachers union does, working with its members, and we really need to be careful that that isn't threatened by the fact that we're not remaining competitive, and that's definitely a responsibility of the mayor to be looking at that, to be working on that. So absolutely, I think that's going to be a priority, and one that I think that we should be working towards now. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates here. Final question before our closing statements. Health insurance for our city employees will be negotiated with the unions prior this spring. What is your plan to ensure healthcare access for all employees of Lynn and their families? Candidates here.
Thank you. Healthcare is always the biggest part of any budget, whether it's on the city side or school side, for workers that work here. Insurance has always been an issue in my household. My wife works for the water and sewer department. She has 34, 35 years. And we have pretty decent insurance. I work for the state. And our insurance is better than the state. It's pretty comparable in some ways. But, I mean, I'm a firm advocate for keeping the insurances that we have. The fire department, police department, DPW. The negotiations, and the biggest issue with them has always been about insurance. And we've managed to work together so that we can find ways of savings without really hurting everything that we're getting. So, you know, health insurance in our country has become so expensive that it's on a national level. And it's left up to cities and towns to fend for themselves a lot of times. And it stinks, you know, when we're always trying to find ways to pay for that, for our insurance. And I know that there's an increase between every negotiated contract because of how expensive it gets. So we got to talk to our legislators on the state level, and we got to talk to our congressmen and our senators on the federal level. We got to get them to come and sit in a room just like this in a town meeting and get them to understand. Somebody was just telling me the other day that they pay almost $1,000 a month for the family plan. That's unbelievable. That's $12,000 a year in health insurance. And then you got to pay your deductibles. And I'm 62 years old. I'm going to the doctor a lot more than I used to be. I'm telling you, and every time I walk through the door, it's the copay before you even get to see the doctor. And then if you got to do a prescription, especially if you have to do it all the time, and if you get sick, I mean, the state does do a better job of giving us, you know, medical leave, whether it's for ourselves or for a family member. In some cases, some people get paid for that. But, I mean, insurance is to me, it's one of our rights that we should have, medical health care. And Lynn is a city of over 100,000 people. We don't even have a hospital here anymore. Everybody blames the political side of that. Well, Partners was a for-profit hospital. They always have been. They're one of the few. Hospitals are supposed to be non-profit. So they did what was best for them, not what was best for us. And that's also something that we got to work with the state on too. I mean, you know, I live off Eastern Ave. Whenever I'm going towards Salem, on my way towards Salem, I have to pull over every few minutes because an ambulance is trying to get through. I'd hate to be the person in that ambulance. Insurance is really important, and I will do everything I can to keep our benefits and our insurance coverage at the highest it can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates here. Candidate Nicholson.
Thank you. We're in a much better position on healthcare than we were a few years ago, and that was a really productive advancement for the city. And we can thank the unions who are at the table, who were willing to negotiate to save the city from a bad spot. And we're in a much better position than we were overall financially, and also in the finances of our healthcare. And so we should absolutely plan to make sure that we sort of stay in a strong position, but also maintain the coverage that we have. Because we know what costs are doing, and we should have the ability to be able to do that and maintain the coverage that we have now. So, you know, that's the plan, is to continue to have an ongoing negotiation, recognizing the progress that we made and trying to preserve that, but also be really mindful of the impact that it has on our employees and their families and ultimately the take-home pay. I felt like, you know, several years ago, we had a lot of conversations in the city about net school spending and about the fact that how that related to Chapter 70 and the funding that we were asking for in the Student Opportunity Act. And there were certain folks in that conversation, people that were, I call them skeptics, about the importance of increasing funding for schools, who would say, look at the increase in school budgets over the years. Nothing's changed. The issue isn't the fact that we're not giving enough money, we're giving plenty of money. That was just dead wrong. And what people are failing to recognize when they say things like that is that the skyrocketing health costs have eaten up so much of the budget. And it's not fair to our cities and towns, our public schools, to look at those dollar figures and say that the budget's increasing when the actual money that's available for operations to compensate our staff, to buy supplies, to do the things that we need to do to provide a great education is in a sense staying flat or shrinking because the healthcare costs are continuing to go up. So, you know, I do think what we can do in the near term is continue to maintain coverage and make it affordable for families, and that should be a priority, because it certainly shouldn't be on the backs of families that we address this issue, and our employees and our team. But we should also, you know, have that conversation as a city about how to, you know, think about what we can do about rising healthcare costs, and at the very least, make it clear to the people that are authoring those budgets about the issues that we're having in the sense that we're not actually we're not actually able to put those funds into the educational needs that we're asking for because of healthcare insurance companies taking more of our budget essentially. So you know, this is a priority, and I think people that are serving. People that are serving the city by teaching, by working in public schools, shouldn't have to worry about healthcare access, and that will absolutely be a priority of mine as mayor.
Thank you, candidate Nicholson. We will now begin with our closing statements. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to sum up their platform. Candidates here.
Thank you. As I said, I grew up here in the city. I've lived here 62 years. I live 4 blocks over from where I grew up. I'm extremely invested in our community. I've done everything from playing Little League, baseball as a kid, to being a parent who's Santa Claus in the PTA at Avon School for my kids and the other kids there. Just the other day, a parent that's sitting here in this room sent me a picture on Facebook asking if that was me. That was 25 years ago. Her son was in kindergarten. Now he's a lieutenant in the Army. That's pretty amazing. And I mean, there's hundreds of families and hundreds of kids that have touched me or I've touched them by all kinds of experiences, whether I was their coach, whether we played ball together or grew up together. I still have friends from when I was 5 years old. Billy Trahant sitting right there, we grew up together. Donnie Barbuzzi. These are people that are still living in Lynn and raising their families. I want the same thing as everybody else in Lynn. A safe community to live in, the best possible schools we can have. I don't want to take 20 minutes getting from Easton Ave out to Route 1 because traffic is so heavy, and drive over 6,000 potholes to get there. I really believe that the future of our city lies in development. 20 years ago, the GE, Norelco, Nissan's Bakery, all these different factories supported all the families that lived here. They're gone. We have so many people that live here now that are looking for a better life who are immigrants. We are the most diversified city in the whole wide world. That's part of understanding the Lynn experience. And growing up and having friends of many colors, nationalities, religions, fighting with them on the playground and standing up with them when you go into Swampscott or somewhere else, or you're playing another team, or when you're from Eastland or Westland. I always say this, we're one big family, and we fight and we argue here in our own community, but we always stand together wherever we go. As council president and as a city council, I have been faced with so many issues, whether it be budget issues, receivership and fining $11 million so we don't have to lay anybody off or raise anybody's taxes. Whether it's being a pandemic and feeding thousands of people every single day. Whether it's being a volunteer at the GAR on Andrew Street, or in your church, or at the PTA. Or just being a friend to a neighbor, making sure they're okay. As Lynn Mayor, I just want to make our city the best possible place in the whole wide world to live. And I think I have proven that. I'm accessible. I will allow anybody to come and sit at the table and discuss the issues. If I'm the mayor, I represent everyone, whether I agree with you or disagree with you. And I've proven that as a ward councilor. There are many times when I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning because someone needs help and I go out and do it. Or because the street hasn't been plowed and I go out and plow it myself. Or a tree has fallen down. Or someone's husband or wife is sick and they may need a ride, or they may need to get shoveled out. I eat, sleep, and breathe Lynn. I always have. Whether I win as mayor or I lose, I'm still going to be here and still going to be a part of the community and still contribute. My father was a city councilor, and I've been a city councilor. He's always been my hero. Leadership by example, and that's exactly what he's done, and that's what I believe in. I've always stuck up for everybody that lives here in the city. I'll fight for you every single day in every single way I possibly can. I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Candace. Here, Candace Nicholson.
Thank you so much. Well, first, thank you to the Lynn Teachers Union again for hosting us. Thank you all of you for being here. Thank you particularly to the educators for being here tonight to participate, but also for all that you've done especially over the last year and a half. It's been so difficult, and this year continues to be difficult. The challenges that we're all under to comply. Thank you for everyone for making that effort. The challenges that you're faced with working with students that have been out of school, families that have been out of school. That all the extra work that's going into making this year possible, we appreciate it. Thank you. One of my goals as mayor will be to continue to build on the values that we've all selected and worked on in the Lynn Public Schools. Inclusivity, shared responsibility, collaborative relationships, high expectations, and inspiring lifelong learning. I really believe that those are strong fundamental values for the Lynn Public Schools that serve the Lynn Public Schools well, that you all implement in your work every day with students, and that we can carry across the city. It's been an honor to work with you on the school committee, my role in the school committee, and I think we've done some great work together. You know, one of the priorities that I had as a candidate for school committee back in 2015 when I first ran, that we've done a lot of great work together on, that you all are working on every day. I see it, I hear about it, is the work that we're doing around social emotional learning. I wrote an op-ed in 2015 in the item about the importance of that, and we have the K-5 curriculum now. We're making the hires to be able to work with students' needs outside the classroom. We're working on the K-12 curriculum. There's a lot of work to do to continue to advance that and implement that, but that's progress that we need to continue. And that communication goes both ways. One of the things I did early on the school committee that I was proud to have this opportunity was a teacher reached out to me because of a negative experience they had, wanting to bring resources into their classroom and being blocked from being able to set that up. And so I sat down with them, heard them, and we worked on a new policy to allow for crowdfunding in the city and with the public schools, going through the proper channels to make sure that it fit into what we're doing as a district. But that's the kind of two-way communication, two-way collaboration that we need to build on. We have those, that accessibility and that follow-through to be able to drive it to a policy that's now been implemented. We've been doing that on a broader scale in the public schools and overhauling the policies and really prioritize bringing in the right voices and stakeholders to be able to update a document that is 40 years out of date. Especially over the last year and a half, we've had the opportunity to collaborate. And I appreciate everyone that's reached out and have had a lot of important conversations about the challenges that folks have faced in at every term in this pandemic. One of the terms that I found most challenging and frustrating was last winter, when the governor was pounding the table saying that we need to reopen schools and essentially blaming teachers' unions for not being back in school. I didn't think that was right. And so I stood up, I wrote an opinion piece in the Boston Globe that called the governor out for banging the table saying we should be back in schools and then not giving us the resources that we would need to open it. Teachers want to teach. It's our responsibility as leaders to create the safe conditions for people to teach. And I recognize that and was willing to stand up and communicate it, and I think we made a lot of progress working together to be able to reopen the schools safely and are working to figure that out now. That's the kind of collaborative leadership that I plan to bring to City Hall. My mother was an early education teacher for over 30 years. I value public education deeply. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity in the city of Lynn to make real investments in our city's infrastructure, to take advantage of interest and development in a way that benefits the city. And we need a man that recognizes the importance of public education as the foundation upon which all that brighter future is built. It's in our schools. That's what gives people the skills they need to thrive and to be able to participate in the growth that we hope is coming. Because for this growth to be meaningful, we need to make sure that it benefits Lynn residents, and that starts with Lynn students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Thank you, Mayor Nicholson, and thank you all for attending the forum tonight. Remember, November 2nd, we need to get out there and vote. And on Thursday, LTU will be meeting via Zoom to discuss endorsements for the school committee and the mayor races. Thank you again for coming. Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.